Broker Bulletin acknowledges the traditional custodians of all the lands across the country on which we record our podcast and pays its respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Broker Bulletin podcast, where better begins. Join us as we chat with brokers about what's working for them, what drives them, and the real challenges and wins that matter most right now.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Broker Bulletin. I am Laura Waters from Podium Money, and today we have Raj Kapoor from Apollo. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Laura. Great to be here.
Today we're talking about trust lending. So there is a myth that all trust lending is complex and time-consuming. To get us started, what exactly is non-trading company or trust lending?
Thanks, Laura. That's a great question to start with. Trust lending is usually a non-trading trust, as we call it, would be a special purpose vehicle or an SPV, which is where assets are held under a non-trading part and not under the trading company. Love to ask you a question. What kind of clients are you seeing using these SPVs or trust lending, and what goals do they have?
So I'm the head of residential at Podium Money. What we see a lot of is self-employed clients. So a lot of them use it also for asset protection or tax planning, but it's mainly from advice from their accountants or their financial planners. They've been told that this is the way that they should structure it from a taxation point of view. We also get a lot of families and succession planning. A lot of people use trusts for that. Like we had one the other day where the mum and two daughters wanted to do a development, and so down the track, eventually the mother will leave it to the two daughters, and that's how they've structured it. And also non-related parties that are wanting to buy together, and they can use a unit trust or, a company trust structure in order to be able to do that. But mainly sophisticated investors who have the right advice from their planners or their tax accountants.
Excellent. Well, definitely some good purposes there, but would look like you'd have to be somebody who's prepared and well prepared. What advice do you give your clients to make sure that they're prepared, or how do you make sure they're ready for?
Definitely, it's a good idea. They need to understand why they are doing it, and it's good to have the trust set up beforehand. So trust deeds already signed. If you've got already one set up, what existing liabilities are in there. But the worst thing you can do is buy a property and not have your trust set up, and then we're all running around like headless chooks at last minute trying to make it work. So I would say definitely work with your accountant to have the trust established. I would definitely do that, and also have pre-approval. So Raj, what does a good trust client look like for you?
Look, I think a good trust client is someone who's obviously well prepared, has had good advice, especially with the recent changes in budget. I think it's important that you've actually had an opportunity to really consider all the options, and your accountants are well across all the purposes as well as goals you've got set for yourself. There's also somebody who's got good credit rating, as well as good servicing. I think those are key ingredients for what would make a good trust client. At Apollo, we want to make sure that we are a good solution for the trust clients. We are open to considering trust lending for non-trading trusts, non-trading companies. We take complex as well as simple trusts, as well as some hybrid trusts. The key things for us is that we want to make sure that this solution, while it's important to be prepared, is still an easy process. So things like we have dedicated credit teams whose job it is to just work through trust structures, mud maps, and working through what the clients are using, what purpose they're using the trust for.
Yeah.
We've also looked at all the trust deeds. All the vetting is done in-house for us. So we've got specialists in this position who are actually looking at these every day.
Yeah.
To make it an easier solution for brokers and customers.
I agree. I've actually done quite a few with Apollo Plus in trust lending recently, and we find your turnaround times compared to other lenders in that space is it's great. It's especially good given a lot of the major lenders have pulled out of the trust lending space, and you've got to go through Business Bank now, and you could be looking at weeks for a turnaround. Whereas with you guys, we've got direct access to our BDM that always workshops everything beforehand, and we can talk directly to credit as well. So we find that things tend to go through, even through to settlement. There's always, a last minute scramble there, especially if there's a purchase involved. But we find because we can contact people directly at Apollo, things tend to go through a lot more quickly and smoothly. And plus you have really good pricing as well. Did you want to run through recent changes there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we see that this is a really good solution for the right customers. And to help with that, we have recently launched a special where we've actually dropped our rates for trusts, non-trading trusts, by 40 basis points. We've certainly seen a lot of take up, and brokers are loving the simple and easy process we've got, as well as the really sharp pricing to help customers. In addition to being competitive in price, we do understand that trusts can still be a complex product and there are some complex structures around. And we definitely try and make sure that the experience for yourself and your customers is as simple as possible.
And I totally agree with that. And working with Apollo, it's great because when they are really complex and it's hard to follow the flow of funds, it's really good to be able to workshop it with a BDM up front. Shout out to Vanita, who's my BDM, who gets a lot of phone calls from me and my para brokers. Yeah, she'll sit down with us at the start and workshop it with us, especially if it is complex. And then also having direct access to credit once the deal has been submitted. And when there's a deadline that we have to meet, which generally there is, especially when a purchase is involved, we can turn things around very quickly. And I find Apollo is nimble enough to be able to do that when we really need help. We feel we trust Apollo, whereas some of the other banks, it's hard to get answers out of people, but we know that with Apollo, we will always be able to get onto somebody, and especially if there's a tight deadline. And that's from the beginning right through till settlement as well. The settlement team is really good and they're very responsive, and you speak to a person rather than a team who might be offshore.
Yeah, no, certainly having team on the ground throughout the journey to support the brokers and the customers has been a very important part of our trust offering.
We find at Podium, we use Apollo because you have, firstly, really good servicing. Secondly, you use negative gearing in trusts as well for now. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. But you also will do low doc and 85 no LMI in a trust. So compared to other competitors, we find that sets you apart. Did you want to go into what sort of other policies that Apollo has?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've definitely named a few of the highlights for us. We use 2% serviceability buffer across our product. We do have the 85% LVR with no LMI. It's tiered pricing, and plus, like I said, even in addition to this, the pricing special we've got, we are still open to pricing for the deal, depending on what the customer is. Something else which brokers have really loved using about us is that we use earnings before interest and taxes. So that actually allows for a little bit more revenue to be utilized as part of the trust. We also use spousal income. So you've got a trust which requires a spousal income part of it. That's acceptable to us. We've also got something really about the simple trust where if the rent of the trust is enough to cover the servicing, then that's all we require. We just need the stamp trust deed and the rental statements for us to actually do.
That's great. So that's all you need. You don't need to get, guarantees from anyone else. No trading businesses that need to be looked at. It just can be confined to that one trust.
Yep, that's it. That's our simple and company assessment is rental statement as well, and that's all we need for servicing and the stamp trust deeds within 12 months.
Of course.
Something else which actually brokers really love about us is the independent legal advice is built into the contract pack. So that is, and it's only required for when you are an actual non-shareholder. So if you're a beneficiary, no independent legal advice is required.
That's great because that can be expensive.
Correct. Well, that's one expense we try and cut down. And the other one is given we do all our trust vetting internally, the trusts are reviewed internally. That's another $500 to $1,000 worth of savings, plus the time it takes to send it to external parties because we do it all in-house.
Oh, that's perfect.
That actually does help with the stress.
So Raj, at Broker Bulletin, we're all about finding those 1% improvements that lead to big wins. What's one small thing that you do every day that has the biggest impact on your performance?
Oh, good question. Look, I'm sure I'm not the only one who has this, but I will find that my inbox gets so many emails that some of the key critical actions can sometimes get lost or get deprioritized. So every morning I make sure that I have a clear set of 3 things I have to get done, which then sets me up for I have done the big rocks, I've done the key things, and I've got clear visibility of what are those 3 things. I start with the 3, and once I've done those 3, that then allows me to at least know that some critical things have been done, and allows me to set my day up. So
and you try and get those ones done in the morning?
Correct.
Yeah.
I try and
when you're focused.
Correct. When I've had my coffee.
Yeah.
When I am ready to take on the world. So yes, I try and get those three big things. Visibility is the 1% thing, I would say.
So thanks for joining us today, Raj. To wrap up, my biggest takeaway from today's conversation was the variety of policies that apply to trust lending with Apollo compared to other lenders. You really set yourself apart in this space. And I personally love using Apollo for that reason. So thanks so much for listening. If you have a topic you want to discuss with us, please email brokerbulletin@lmg.broker or DM us on Instagram @lmg.broker. And our producer will make sure we answer it ASAP. If you like this episode, please make sure you rate and follow us wherever you find your podcasts.
Thanks for tuning in to Broker Bulletin. We would hate for you to miss an episode. Subscribe to Broker Bulletin in your favourite podcast app. Has this episode been helpful? We'd love you to rate and review us. It'll help us deliver content that's useful to you and help others discover us. If you have great ideas for topics worth tackling or have burning questions you'd like addressed on an upcoming episode, reach out. Links in the show notes. See you next time.